I would always get frustrated or angry when they wouldn't listen to me at all. I try and explain something to them, no listening.
Talking to teachers, yeah, I thought it's a bit difficult.
I was put in the corner of a room by myself away from all the students because I was deemed not able to work with students and not allowed to be anywhere near them.
They just shout you for like stuff that isn't your fault. And then if you try talking to them, say why you did that, they won't care because they think only their opinion is right. I just want to be listened to, and that's it.
Parents are also receiving, an anxious child. They will ask, how was school? And the child can't articulate at that point. They've not been able to do a thing.
I would say probably four out of 5 days a week I'm in contact with the schools, having to deal with issues or having to let them know there's something on at home, because again, they only see one picture in the school. They don't see the impact of what that's coming home or the impact of getting that child into education.
I don't think there's that education that, not just from students, but from teachers as well, that neurodiverse students have a different way of learning. I have to work sometimes 3 times as hard as a neurotypical person to understand what my teacher might be telling me.
As much as they struggle within school, there are masks that they can put on, so the school doesn't see the meltdowns and the anxieties and the 150, I don't want to go to school, you can't make me, you're horrible, I hate yous. Before they get to the door, they don't see that. They see, oh, actually, they've managed to sit through that class, we'll give them a praise point. They're having a good week. I just want my children to be safe and to have an education.
I've seen a huge gap, and a lot of neurodiverse individuals are being let down by the system.
Our teaching wasn't accessible to all. And it breaks my heart to think that in that first half of my career, that some children were disabled by us, really, because we just didn't recognise it. Nothing's changed. I'm so sorry, but nothing has actually changed. I'm furious.
The problem that I find with mainstream educators is that they were in an education system that was successful for them. So why would it be any different when they're teaching? Why would they need to adapt their practice? Why would they? Because they've had all of their life in school and it's been fine.
Children don't all learn the same way. And when you're saying to a class, have you got any questions? Has everybody got that? Okay, no more questions. It's really hard for any child to put their hand up, but when there's a neurodivergent child, they don't put their hand up. They come away and worry and worry and worry and catastrophise inside there, and they don't actually learn. And it's things like that that you're just constantly having to remind the educational professionals.
Get scared a little bit, not sure if they're like, some of them, I'm not sure what kind of person they are, so what are they thinking in their head? Like, will they laugh at me if I say this?
It's looking at how we can make children feel that they are included in all aspects of school and not left to just plough their own field. That's not how it should be. They shouldn't be excluded like that.
What parents tell me is it feels like they've been unsuccessful as a parent because their child is unable to access school, and the reality of that is the way that school looks doesn't work for the child. It's got nothing to do with the home. That version of education, that child is never going to be successful in that environment.
There's always been an emphasis on teacher-led learning, and actually the students have also got a lot to offer. So part of our training for staff to embed the awareness of neurodivergency is to get the kids to talk to them, speak to the students, ask people what they want and how we can tailor things to their needs, and vice versa.
We work mainly at trying to really put the students' voice at the forefront of what we do. So meeting them, inviting them to open days, asking them as many questions, and almost putting the written paperwork down and saying, what do you need whilst you're at college, and trying to help them to understand their needs and how they will align and what it will look like before they start with us.
Sometimes we go, well, we think this works, but actually hearing from each of the individuals about what do they think works and what do they think helps is a good place to start.
It's especially important with us at ALP that we establish trust before we even attempt to really teach.
My way of doing it is I put music on that I know they like. Oh, she's playing Eminem.
So being your whole self in the classroom, and then allowing other people to be them whole selves in your classroom. And so for me, what that looks like is, like, I'm a power nerd, so like I've got like nerd stuff. Like, my personality is in my classroom, and then that creates a level of authenticity that allows the children to be the same.
When learners have come from mainstream schools where they've not been treated in the way that they need to be to kind of grow and learn. So we start trying to build a relationship of trust on a one-to-one basis.
Daryl's a really kind person. By listening, by caring, by asking me if I'm okay, by letting me have space to myself when I need it.
Questions that we would have been talking about would be like, what music do you listen to and what you're listening to right now? Jazz listens to a lot of music, so she could be listening to anything, but it's just a talking point.
I feel happier that I'm here than I did in mainstream, because I'm not scared to learn new things like I was before. I was scared to learn new topics, and certain topics I don't like, but I still learned them anyway.
Whenever I have problems, I always go to Mr. Johnson. He listens to me, for one. Second off, he actually deals with a situation. And third off, because he can have a joke with you, and he's just cool to be around.
Having Mr. Johnson there is really helpful for the students because they know he's their go-to person. Having him around just makes the students feel, I think, that this is someone I can talk to and will help me.
We have different touch points throughout the week where the whole team communicates, so they're talking. This really works well with Joe, this really works well with Jane, this really works well with, try this in your lesson, try that in your lesson. This was actually a really engaging activity, they loved it, do some more of this kind of stuff.
I think once we start to work together, draw on other people's specialist expertise, that's when I think you can start to make a real difference to people's lives.
A lot of the time as educational individuals, we're very, very frightened to do the wrong thing. And nothing's wrong. You can't get it wrong because we are just people, and all you can do is say, I'm really sorry I didn't do my best, but let's try again.
It's okay to not know what to do. There's so many different variations that, like, it's better to look at the situation, try and figure out the best way of dealing with it, but even if you can't, then don't just ignore the problem or ignore the situation.
We did this task to try and regulate him, but that didn't quite work. Another child said something that shouldn't have been said and it exploded. What could we have done differently? And the fact that the teacher had talked to me in those terms of frizzy, tried to use tasks to regulate, used interventions, it's words like that. That language gives me confidence that they get it, they understand it, and they're trying their best. Does it always go right? No, but you know what? You're trying your best. That's all I'm asking for.
20 years ago, there wasn't a formal diagnosis or a label as such given, and obviously now we just know so much more about neurodiversity. And through having my own children and sort of understanding my own neurodiversity as I've got older has enabled me to relate to students much more, and I think empathise and engage with them, which then helps me to ask them the right questions because I know the things that might be bothering them or making them anxious before they transition.
Quickly realised that my younger daughter is also autistic with ADHD, sensory processing, social anxiety. So I've got two hats. I wouldn't say that I went into this because of my daughter. I was already in this, but it's enhanced my learning experience and my personal and professional growth within that area.
You can see how much is being done in the sector, but it's really important that we kind of, as people outside looking at the bigger picture, can then try and work with people within education, but then also local businesses, the local areas, to try and bring everyone together.
There's lots of really good work that happens within schools. There's pockets of greatness, but the piece that was missing was that thread that pulled it all together so that young people could see and access their journey that they've been on. That's where the We Discover Journal started. It was a place to bring all of that learning into one place, and we've seen a huge culture change in the way that our schools are working with us, and they're thinking differently about some of those really difficult barriers that almost felt insurmountable before, but now that we've sort of broken them down and we've tested new models for them in how they engage in some of those barriers. And we've seen a real change in how they're working with us and how they're working with their young people.
The problem that we have at the moment is resource and time to get to that resource. These processes need to be more streamlined, quicker and easier to access, because we need to reach the best outcome for the student. So we're currently working on automating all of our referral systems so that the robot can kind of point people into the right direction to take up less time for the human. So actually the people working on the ground can actually concentrate on the student.
Children are probably already accessing some of these AIs in the form of ChatGPT. There'll be others as well. Teachers need to now catch up with that pretty quickly, and I think those that will ensure that that generation of children going through their schools will be best placed. Those that are not up to speed with this will lose another generation.
It just kind of comes down to kind of listening to those individual people, but really listening as well, and you kind of, you can kind of, oh, nod along, yep. Listening, understanding, taking that away and going, right, reflecting on that, what can I actually do?
You can do so many activities and events, and you can advocate and everything, but it all comes down to those fundamentals of just listening to an individual and understanding their perspective of how they may need to adjust with things.
If a student comes to them, like me, and they ask for help on a situation, then they should listen and do something about it, rather than just listening, say they'll do something about it, then won't, or just simply not caring.
You need to hear it from the parental viewpoint as well. I think parents need to be heard. They're not trying to cause an inconvenience to the normal workings in that school. What they're doing is they're informing them prior to the anxiety kicking in. And I think we need to be pre-planned and proactive rather than reactive in what we do.
What I want my children to do is empower and know themselves and be able to understand themselves, to regulate and be able to do things that they need to do. Be able to identify and go, I need to leave the room. Not, I don't leave the room because something might be said and I'll look different. I want to say, I need to leave the room because they're secure and they know that they need that step to regulate.
Make it your responsibility to research and research from the right places, but ask questions. There's no such thing as a silly question, and it's better to ask a question coming from a good place and show that you care than not ask at all.
What we want to do is create an environment where you can have that conversation, not with us, but with somebody within the school who could make a change and help that teacher to understand that what they're saying is being interpreted as this, which is perhaps not what they're trying to say. And without having that open conversation, that ability to go back and forth, it's being done to you, not with you. That's sort of the purpose of our project, and what we're trying to do with our teachers, with our schools, is change that culture of doing it with young people, not to young people.
We want children who are accessing further and higher education, going on to the employment where they can best use their talents. I just feel very passionate that it isn't just about exam results.
To see learners who are struggling to even maintain social dynamics with their peers and whatnot, and they eventually grow to gain friends and have a social life in and outside of the school, giving them opportunities that they have not been given in mainstream schools. It's one of the great things about what we do.
I've just been more confident to be myself and to be able to see my autism as not something that I thought was a disadvantage when I was in school, but actually something that I can move forward with and see the good parts about that.
Most of the biggest change for humanity comes from the neurodivergent tribe. And so therefore my children are in a VIP group. And that's what I tell them. I said, you're on a special, you're in that group that can change the world.